Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the How to Choose Happiness and Freedom Show. I'm your host, Lauren Foster, happiness teacher, founder of Be Happy First, and author of Happy and Free on Purpose, Daily Practices to Live and Love Your Life. So a quick reminder that every single month we do a drawing for a free autographed copy of the book and a free 30-minute coaching session with me just for signing up for our newsletter. So if you look below, you'll be able to see the link to that. It's laurengfoster.com/newsletter. But however you connect with us, if you get one of our free meditations, if you buy the book, if you get the free study guide that goes with the book, any way that you join the Be Happy First tribe and get on our list, and we'll enter you in that drawing. And we do it on the first of the month. Every month, the next drawing will be September 1st. So be sure to do that. Now, on to today's episode of the How to Choose Happiness and Freedom Show. I am so happy to have with me as my guest, Conny Graf. She is the Clutter Clearing Coach, and she's the host of From Chaos to Peace. Welcome, Conny. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me.
Yay. So first of all, tell us a little bit about you. Let us get to know you and who you are and what you do and how you arrived at this place of providing a valuable service. I'm telling you, I know exactly how I feel when clutter gets in my life and in my head and in my computer. And, and I see people who are surrounded by clutter that, people that I love. And so I would love for this message to get to them and help them get inspired to get things uncluttered in their life. So anyway, tell us your story. Who's Conny?
Conny. So I always joke and say I was already decluttering when nobody was talking about it. So I grew up in Switzerland and I was lucky enough to have my own room in the house I grew up in. But it was like, I always joke and say it was a broom closet. So it was very small. And early on, I realized how the surroundings have an effect on me, when it's cluttered, it's kind of like claustrophobic or just, so I was constantly moving stuff around. I was already decluttering, even though, like I said, I don't think back then anybody talked about clutter or decluttering. And so, yeah, I did this as a, probably a early teenager, like 12, 13, 14, I started doing this already, maybe even earlier. And so it was not really something that you could do as a profession. Nobody really took me serious. They just thought I was a little, Conny is rearranging her room again. And but it really helped me in my professional life later. I was in finance. I would always have an organized office. Everybody would say, oh, if you need something done, bring it to Conny. And then when I moved to Canada, all my finance degrees were really not valid anymore. I would have had to redo them all, and I didn't really feel like it. But this kind of I thought, oh, this would be very valuable. I can help people realize how the environment makes them feel and how they could change their environment actually to feel more empowered, to feel more productive, to have it easier. It's like I'm all about having it easier. So that's what I'm doing right now. Helping people I always say, create a supportive environment that supports your lifestyle, however you want to live. And especially now, since the pandemic started, so many people try to work from home in a huge chaos and are not thinking about how can I make my life easier. So that's my passion, as you can hear, and my mission.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk in general about why decluttering is important. And then once we have everyone convinced, I want to talk about some ways that we can actually make this happen. Does that sound good? All right. So we talked when we were preparing for the show about how decluttering is self-love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talk about this a lot. Decluttering is self-love because clutter stresses us out, and we all know it. We see the evidence in our own life, but now it's not just kind of like our feeling and we can't prove it. Now science has proven it. There is all kinds of studies that actually talk about it because it's such a big issue in today's world. If I remember right, our houses got 4 times bigger than 50 years ago. We have 10 times more things. It starts already with toddlers and children. They have so many things. And it actually has a really stressful effect on us. So we feel it. We feel heavy the more we have. We can also go a little bit into the so-called woo and say everything that you own has some kind of an energetic attachment to you, whether or not it's in your house or not, whether it's digital or not. So we do feel it. And so that's why I'm calling it self-love, because if we reduce the chaos around us, if we reduce the clutter around us, if we get rid of the things that we really don't need and love anymore, we're freeing up not just space in our home, but we're doing something good for our body. And we also know a lot of the time from a lot of studies what stress can do to our body. So a lot of the diseases we're battling today in our society come from stress. So if you can't necessarily reduce your stress because you have a stressful job, you can at least reduce the stress that comes from your environment. You know, like that's where you actually can do something. So it empowers you. So yeah, I feel like it's really an important message. You're doing something for your health, physical health. You're doing something for your mental health, because stress has also such a huge impact on us. You're doing something for your emotional life. And it, to talk with your listeners, you become more happy. You know, it's like it helps. It helps.
At the very least, if you're not spending half your day looking for something that you don't know where anything is.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm pretty good in my physical world, but inside my computer, we're gonna talk about that some more too. I'm like, where did I put that? Where is this one file in the midst of all of these things? And I'm a bit of a digital hoarder. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So is that the same thing?
It's not 100% the same thing, because of course, when you have digital stuff, you're not tripping over it. It's not, most likely it's not in your visual all the time. So it has not exactly the same effect. But we do have to remember, even though we feel like, oh, we don't see it, so out of sight, out of mind, it's not that way. It's still, your subconscious still knows you have a mess on your computer, or you have so much stuff on your computer that you can't find it, or you have stuff on your computer that you don't really need, and whatever it is. So like our subconscious, and science says, like, I think 95% of our conscious is subconscious and only 5 is really conscious. So just imagine, and it's really like, it's powerful too. I always say the subconscious is what actually lets us live, because all these habits, the breathing, the digesting, the blood flow, and all this happens all in the unconscious. But if we burden it with all kinds of stuff, then it has an effect on us. We can't negate it, but it's, of course, because it's not so visually present all the time, we can kind of pretend like it's not the same big deal. So to answer your question, and then with digital clutter, what we often forget is digital clutter is also like all the online accounts we have somewhere, all the rewards cards we have somewhere, all the information that is floating out there somewhere that could get hacked, that could create stress. So like it goes way further than just whatever is on your computer.
Right.
So that's
that makes absolute sense. And in the book, we actually talk a little bit about creating beautiful space for yourself. And just like it's difficult for you to walk through a cluttered room, it's difficult for energy to flow through a cluttered room. And yeah. So, okay, now it's kind of easier said than done. If you are a person who is in the habit of not picking up things that you really don't know how to do this, well, where do we start? Where do we start at decluttering?
Yeah, that's the number one question I always get is, where do I start? And I can rattle down all kinds of tips. The thing is, these tips you can Google too. where I say you have to start is actually with your brain. It's like, we can Google how to do it. We can, like, the internet is full of tips how to do it, but we often find ourselves not doing it. And I'm not just talking about decluttering, and we can talk about all kinds of going to the gym, eating healthier, finding more time for ourselves, for reflection or journaling. We all know, we all can Google how to do it, but then we find ourselves not doing it. And so we have to start with the brain. But one of the things that trips a lot of people up is they try to do too much too quick. So that's why one of my sayings is, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. So what we want to do is we want to get into a habit of doing a little bit every day, because the advantage of that is, you start to train yourself to declutter a little bit, to organize a little bit. And then once you are to a point where you feel like, oh, now I'm feeling much better, my environment is quite organized, you keep this habit up to leave it that way, because maintaining the decluttered space is actually the biggest problem people struggle with. They sometimes, and I feel so bad for them, they sometimes really manage to get all this energy up and do a whole day of reorganizing their office or reorganizing their home. And then they feel really good about it. But 2 weeks later, it looks the same. And I feel so bad for them, because there's a lot of wasted energy, and it's the opposite of self-love. And so that's where I'm saying, like, you start small with a few minutes a day. That's the most important message I'm trying to get across. But you stay consistent. And I promise, consistently doing something every day over a period of time gets you way further than having these bursts of energy doing something, and then you most likely overwhelm yourself and wear yourself out completely, because we take on too much. And then you're so, oh gosh, now I've done it, and now I don't have to do it for the next 2 months. But then all this clutter builds up again. And if you would just do a little bit every day, easy peasy, I like to say, you're so much further 2 months down the road than if you do this roller coaster thing. And so that's the biggest message from my side.
I love this. And this, that applies to everything. Everything, trying to clean up all of your mental habits or anything. If you just take tiny steps in the right direction, then it's always easy. It's always graceful. It's always, there's a story that I love to tell about the Magic Orchid that my mother told me this when I was a little girl. And I couldn't find the origins of the story. So honestly, I think she made it up just as a way to encourage me to clean my room. But it was basically that a woman had a cluttered home, and someone brought this beautiful orchid to her door, and she looked around and couldn't find any place to put it. So she cleared off a spot on a table and put it there, and thought how beautiful it was, but it was out of place. So she cleaned up more so that it would be in place. And then that table was out of place. So she cleaned the room. And then so from that one small place, she was able to let that beauty just kind of gently expand out into her home. And that's just what you're teaching.
I love that story, and I've never heard it. And, I collect. I have orchids. So orchid for 30 years now, I have orchids. So this story speaks to me, and it exactly speaks to how I help my clients, especially in the beginning with decluttering. I do something called the love tour. So we're actually in the beginning going through the home and actually identifying why they wanted to live here, what they love about their home. Do they have a favorite corner in their home? And that's where we go and start. It's similar like your orchid story, where we're symbolically put the orchid there, and then we start working from there.
So
that's
awesome. Now, what if that there are a lot of people who are not living in the home that they love? They're living in the home that they thought they could afford, that, that they have allowed themselves to become a victim of circumstance and don't love their home. Now, what do you say to this person who, like, I don't like anything about this house? There's no place that
Well, of course, ultimately you want to probably move if it's that bad. But I would think for most people it's not that bad. So we can create an environment that we love and that is supportive. No, so start brainstorming with yourself. What are the things that I love to look at? Do I love to look at art? Do I need to have a print maybe on the wall that helps me to focus when I come in this room that I otherwise don't like so much, or maybe if the view isn't the greatest out the window, then I find the view in the room that keeps me up. So it's, and again, like to me, it somehow came natural, but for the longest time, I didn't know I'm doing it, but just check in with yourself. How does the room make me feel? If the room makes me feel stressed out and depressed or down or whatever, well, you don't have to ask me or Lauren or anybody how to do it. You have to ask yourself, what would make me feel more upbeat if I come into this room? Maybe it's flowers, maybe it's a piece of art, maybe, I don't know, it's a nice pillow, whatever. And just start somewhere. And like you just said with that orchid story, I always joke and say decluttering is a contagious, and it will get you into, it starts to have ripple effects into everything, into your whole life. And you start seeing things like, oh, why is this here? I don't need this, or it's all of a sudden it happens, but you have to start with it. And when you start small, the changes are also not so dramatic. We always think we want to have dramatic changes. Like if somebody hates their home, they want to have a dramatic change, but you take yourself with to the new place. So it's not, so you have to start with yourself. And dramatic changes are actually scary. So most people don't understand how scary it could be. I help people. We declutter sometimes a room, and then they stand there and say, it looks so bare. It's hard to handle. So that's another plus point for doing it in small spaces or in small little chunks or small minutes, a few minutes.
That's it. That is an absolutely perfect answer. And that's what I would always, there is always, no matter where you are, what's happening, there is something beautiful, something to appreciate, something to, and to, when you turn your attention to that and then expand on that, then you're in a position to grow into a different home if that's what you want. Yeah.
Or maybe all of a sudden you realize that your home is really not that bad, that it was just like, it starts to open up, And I'm not saying that like I have helped clients that the home wasn't ideal for how they wanted to live or what their profession was or their lifestyle was, but you can still make it better. There's always something to make it better.
Right. Absolutely. Now, did we talk about, or is it all interwoven about clutter inside your mind?
Yeah. To me, it starts with the mind and it ends with the mind. It's like from all kinds of angles. So that we even have clutter, like let's say physical or digital clutter, starts with the mind, because our brain tells us, oh, we have to keep it because, and then whatever the reason you're putting behind it, we also have limiting beliefs that I call mental clutter that tell us, oh, I don't love this home, but I can't change it. So I just have to deal with it. And I have to be a depressed person for the rest of my life or whatever. It's all mental clutter. And so we have to clean this up. But then also when you start decluttering, during the decluttering process, there's a lot of mental clutter coming up. Oftentimes might be anxiety, or depending on what your history is like, again, I can't throw this out. What if I need it? And my mother threw something out and 2 days later she needed it. It's kind of like, so right. it all is our thoughts. Like we always say, like anything you see in the world started with a thought. Somebody had a thought, like creating a car or having a house or whatever, started with a thought. So all our clutter starts with a thought. To get rid of the clutter has to do with mental clutter. And then later to keep it decluttered is, again, managing our brain. So it's it's all about mental clutter.
It is, right? It begins and ends there. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I've witnessed people who are shopaholics, and it's the same thing. They're closets are full of things with the tags on them, still in boxes and bags and cluttered, but they're trying to solve the chaos in their mind by the thrill of buying something, and that doesn't solve it.
But I'm wondering what your experience with that is, because that goes into the happy. So like if somebody is a shopaholic or does retail therapy, how I call it, you know, because that's when we can't deal with emotions, or if we don't know how to deal. Like we also often don't learn. I sure never learned how to deal with my emotion in school or anywhere from my parents, because they probably didn't know how to do it. So then we go out and we think, oh, if I go buy something, then I feel happy. And you may feel happy for a short period of time, but then that whole misery that you have otherwise, so-called, comes back. And this is why people have full closets. This is why people have all these gadgets and toys and everything, because that's where we search for the happy, and that's not where the happy is. And I always say, like, you don't have to become a minimalist or get rid of everything to be happy. That's not the point. But think, is this really going to make you happy, or is it actually just like a band-aid, and the problem sits deeper?
Yeah, and that's like any addiction. It's a temporary high from shopping, from drugs, from anything that gives you a temporary feeling of euphoria, and you have to do more and more and more to accomplish the same temporary feeling. But see, you're right, that's every time that you're looking outside of yourself for something to make you feel better. Then you're giving away your power. When you do it from the inside out and understand that you're choosing where you put your focus, you're choosing the types of thoughts and feelings that you're going to have, and then you're letting your life reflect that, then suddenly you're in the driver's seat again, and the shopping and the hoarding and the limiting beliefs all disappear.
Yeah, although it's of course hard, because the whole society and the commercials and the neighbors and it's like we're so bombarded, and especially now with social media too, with all the ads, and we're so bombarded constantly with what we should have, should feel, it's really hard to listen to ourselves. And that's why I always say too, it's like we all have clutter. When people sometimes look at me and say, oh, Conny, you're so lucky you have no clutter, I always say, like, no, that's not true. We all have clutter. I may not have physical clutter, I may have a very organized computer with my digital files and everything, but we all suffer from the mental clutter. We all suffer from society, or what we see on the outside, and the emphasis that is put on material things rather than experiences or dealing with our feelings and all that. So
right, but we also choose which of those messages we pay attention to.
I just want to say, the minute we start beating ourselves up for looking and again having gone for shopping or for eating or for whatever, drinking alcohol, the minute we beat ourselves up, we just create more clutter. We create more mental clutter. We create emotional clutter, which is not helpful. So where we have to get to is to a place of empathy with ourselves. And that's again why I say decluttering is self-love. So now we close the loop.
Well, so, right, absolutely. So tell us what it's like to work with you as a coach. What do you do? Do you come and help me clean my house, or what?
Yes, I can. If you're close to where I am, I can come actually to your home and we can do it together. What is way more effective than like me coming to your home and declutter with you for a few hours is if we work together for over a period of time, because like I said, we need to start switching our habits. We need to start decluttering and organizing. We have to start listening to ourselves. That doesn't happen in a 3-hour session with Conny. It can be the kickstart, but you need longer and kind of like until we are accountable to ourselves and actually do the consistency. It's often helpful to have somebody that keeps you accountable too. So yes, I can come to your home. But what I noticed is, especially now during the pandemic too, it's hard to let a stranger into your home. It's your private space, even though you might want to have help, but it's your private space. If you can put the screen in between, it's often more comfortable.
Right.
And with Zoom or FaceTime or all these awesome video gadgets, I can be in your home without being in your home,
Right.
and that's how I can help people. And I always joke and say finances are a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, but clutter even more so. And so yeah, so you can work with me either in person if you're in the Vancouver, Canada area, or anywhere in the world. We can work together on Zoom.
Yeah. So then this is like in any kind of coach, it's about accountability. It's about support. It's about encouragement. It's about, affirmations and praise, and having somebody on the journey with you that's helping you stay on your path. So
exactly. And when we're in the maze or in the midst of it, we sometimes don't have the same view than somebody that can look from the outside. And then so the combined picture, there's somebody that you trust from the outside that tells you certain things or asks you certain questions, can help you guide through your maze in the end. But I do want to make sure that I mention that too. I would never tell you to get rid of anything. Like, that is not my place. The only thing I do is kind of like make you aware what it does to you, make you aware whether you really need it, make you aware of the consequences of letting it go or letting it not go. It's not about me telling you what to do.
It's about her helping us figure out what this means to us and what we want to hang on to and what we don't.
Exactly. And I would be very careful if somebody starts like if some decluttering coach or professional organizer tells you, oh, just get rid of it. I feel that is overstepping the boundary. That is not what we're here for. So,
and it's defeating the purpose. It's like the give a man a fish and feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and feed him for a life. Yeah,
exactly. And who am I to say what you should do with this item?
Right.
I have no right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So how do we get in touch with you? Wherever you're watching this video or listening, if you look down, you'll be able to see all of these links so that you don't have to pull over to the side of the road and write it down if you don't want to. But what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, the best way is probably on my website, connygraf.com. So it's CONNYGRAF.com. I write my name with a Y. Unlike most North Americans with IE, I have a Y. Right. That's the best. Or you find me on social media under Conny Graf, Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
And I also have a podcast where I talk a lot about especially mental and emotional clutter. So that one is called From Chaos to Peace with Conny. And you find that anywhere you find your podcasts.
Okay, awesome. And again, I will put links to all of these in the show notes wherever you're watching this so that you can follow Conny and learn to declutter your life and love yourself and go, let's see. So what to say it again? The something a day, a minute a day keeps
no, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us, Conny. This was a fun show, and I'm kind of inspired to clean out my drawers again and organize my files in my computer.
Awesome, Lauren. Yeah,
I love it.
Always remember, a few minutes a day keeps the chaos away. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. We're going to be back next week with another fantastic guest. And it's actually kind of cool how Conny and my guest from a couple of weeks ago, Corby, cleaning out your life closet. It's all a similar message. So we're going to be back next week. In the meantime, remember, happiness is a choice. You can always choose to be happy first. I'll see you soon.